And so you do the work once to create the book. That book impacts thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of people, right? And so I think it's, social especially, there's a huge difference. If I'm creating content on social that disappears from the news feed and the longevity of that content is not very good, I'm running on a hamster wheel of content creation. At least YouTube content, similar to a book, it has longevity. Right? You create the content once and then that thing, it continues to rank, it continues to bring in traffic.
What if there was a way to dramatically increase the money that you're making from YouTube and your online business? A way to strengthen your personal brand and position yourself as the go-to authority in your topic and in your industry? And what if there was a way to slingshot ahead of the competition and build a powerful legacy through meaningful content that outlives you? Well, there is a way, and it's through writing a book. And hear me out. I know we're content creators and we're video creators and we're online entrepreneurs, but writing a book is one of the most powerful things you could ever do to achieve all of the benefits I just mentioned and more. And in this episode of the podcast, you're going to be learning from Chandler Bolt, the founder of Self-Publishing School, and he's going to be talking about why and how writing a book can be the best decision you ever make to grow your YouTube channel, your influence, your business, and your income. We're going to be covering why you should self-publish a book, the opportunities of traditional publishing and self-publishing, who should self-publish a book, and the best ways to monetize your book. So if you're actually ready to bolt on additional income streams to your YouTube channel and accelerate your authority faster than ever before, then buckle your seatbelt and get ready for this episode of the Think Marketing Podcast. Today, we have Chandler Bolt on the podcast. He's the CEO of Self-Publishing School, and he's the author of 6 best-selling books, including his most recent book titled Published. He's a TEDx speaker. He hosts a couple incredible podcasts, and his passion is to help people write books so that they can grow their income, their impact, and grow their business. And so, Chandler, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. How's it going?
I'm great. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Sean.
For sure. And I want to kick it off. If people are just meeting you, what is your story related to how writing a book transformed your life?
Yeah. So I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD. So kind of one of the last people you'd ever think to write and publish a book. But I went from this guy who hated writing and hated reading. I was in all AP classes except for English, because if you were in AP English, you had to write more papers and you had to read more books. And I didn't like doing that. And so I went from that to now books have changed my life. When I dropped out of school, I kept learning as if I was in school. I just translated that to books, and then I started writing books. And so I read 50 something books a year, and I've written 6 books. And that's the impetus of how I created Self-Publishing School. And then kind of a little bit of a more personal story. I had a friend that passed away when I was about 21 years old. And right in front of me, it was kind of a tragic accident. And, right after he passed away, I found out that he had actually attended one of my random webinars and written a draft of a book. And we were able to publish that after he passed away. And so that was a big part for me, where I was thinking about pivoting into something else. And then I kind of took inventory of my life and said, hold up, this is one of the only things that I'm doing in my life that's actually having a meaningful impact on the world and making the world a better place. And so that really kickstarted me to double down on Self-Publishing School. And I feel like is now I'm living for 2. And, I've got this bracelet that says "Make Him Proud" on one side, WWKD, what would Kendall do on the other side? And so I feel like I'm living for 2. And a big part of that is through the work that we're doing with Self-Publishing School and helping change more lives through books.
Bro, that is a super powerful story. And it does make me think. I'm a father now, got a 6-month-old, and you do start thinking about what you're leaving behind. And, God forbid tragedies like that happen. But I think as maybe fathers or business leaders or pastors or mentors, or just somebody that just has a message and wants to help somebody with something practical, by actually galvanizing and organizing and putting your content in a book, it can outlive you and really build a legacy. That's super deep. Well, let's break it down. Why self-publish a book? Because there's so many different reasons. So many people that listen to this are YouTube content creators and kind of social media influencers. And they might, here's the objection, dude, like I'm publishing IGTVs, I'm publishing YouTube videos. Does anybody read books anymore? What good would it be for me to write a book? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so I think there's why write and publish in general, and then there's self-publishing versus traditional publishing. And so I think probably the first question is why even do it to begin with, which is I think is really the question that you asked. And I believe it's one of, if not the most powerful ways to grow your impact, to grow your income, and to grow your business if you have one. And so, I mean, it's follow your playbook, right, Sean? This is what we talked about when you came on the Self-Publishing School podcast is, the ways that you embed YouTube secrets is like YouTube secrets will be the sponsor of one of your videos or will be the call to action. So you're ascending a relationship in a low ticket way. So especially for folks who are, creating content, YouTube, things like that, podcasts, whatever, it's a way to ascend the relationship. So I've gone from a free viewer to a paid purchaser of your book. And so it's a small piece of monetization, but then I'm deepening the relationship significantly, right? Then we're spending hours together. And then if I have other products, I can ascend into those as well, if that's what you choose to do. But as a business owner, I look at, as a human, I look at my books as part of my legacy. Like you said, it's the thing that, long after I'm off this earth, it'll still be here. Maybe it'll just be at a Goodwill, but it'll still be here, right? It's a part of my legacy. And then as a business owner, I look at it as a vehicle to generate more leads, sales, and referrals for my business. So my most recent book published generates, I don't even know, a few $100,000 at least every single year. People buy the book or they'll get a copy for free, or whether I'm speaking at events or free plus shipping funnel or whatever, they read the book and then they say, man, this is really helpful. I would love to work with Self-Publishing School on this, right? So I call it a silent salesman. You send the book out in the world and it brings back lead, sales, and referrals for your business.
That's so powerful. I've also learned that, which really is, I think, what leads to the kind of those leads and those sales is the authority. Like even still, books are still respected. And so by being able to say you're an author and truly being one, that's so helpful. I think it's also how it will help you personally level up. By going through the process of writing YouTube secrets, I kind of could scattershot my advice before that. But then after, it was much more organized. I know Michael Stelzner in the past, when talking about speakers at Social Media Marketing World, he said one of the kind of prerequisites was he wanted people to be published authors, because all that meant to them, or self-published authors, it just meant if they had a book that they had actually organized their thoughts. They had gone through the heavy lifting of trimming the fluff, putting it all together. And so I believe it sharpens you as an educator. It sharpens your proprietary process. It sharpens your ideas. It forces you to sharpen those things. So it was like a ripple effect through all of my content. And I mentioned authority, but I think it's also positioning. Even up until this point, a couple other people since then, my friend Daryl, Brian, they've put out some pretty good books. But YouTube Secrets was like the first one in our industry, besides a lot of really poorly written 30-page ebooks. So all of a sudden, Benji and I, who co-authored the book, had like this piece of positioning in a digital social media space that allowed us to just be at a whole nother caliber of authority. And so there's just so many benefits.
Yeah. Well, and, it's to speak to those two things. The root word of authority is author, right? You can't spell authority without the word author.
I've never heard that before.
And also, it's exactly what you said. It forces you to crystallize your thoughts, and it's intimidating. This is why a lot of people don't want to do it, or they feel uncomfortable doing it, is because as you're writing it, and I'm sure you felt this, you're saying, I'm crystallizing my thoughts into the written word. And that means I have to figure out what's my stance on this. But in doing so, now you can speak knowledgeably. You can break apart the book into those are individual talks, or those are individual videos. And I think, if you're a content creator already, chances are you've already created at least a raw framework for your book, right? So you can video record your way to your book. Ministers or pastors, you can preach your way, like your sermon series is a book. Right. Or one of them is, at least. And so you can break that out and you can still cater to the medium that you do best, but while also crystallizing your ideas in what ultimately becomes a book.
That's an encouraging point you mentioned there is, think marketing podcast listeners, you're hearing this and you've already put out 100 video ideas or 10 or 50. You've already published, videos or blog posts or podcast episodes. Those are like chapters potentially, or those are potential chapters. And by putting your content out in public, actually you've posted 50 YouTube videos. 10 did really well. That's like people saying those should be the 10 chapters,
Yes.
and the other ones weren't as strong. And so there's so many powerful things in there. Well, I want to talk about even who you think should publish a book and what some of the best ways to monetize. But before we get there, you mentioned the kind of two questions, the difference between traditional publishing and self-publishing. If someone's listening to this and they want to write a book and they're unfamiliar, they're like, I don't know which path I want to, could I even get traditionally published? Should I even pursue that route? Or even if I could, should I still pursue self-publishing? What's kind of the difference? Break that down.
Yeah, so there's 3 or 4 main differences. It starts with distribution. So it used to be that the only way to sell books was to get your book into bookstores, right? And to get into bookstores, you had to have a publishing deal. To get a publishing deal, you had to have an agent. So you start way back here, and 3 years later, you've got a book that's out in the world. Well, now over 70% of all books sold are sold on Amazon. Right. And you don't need a publisher to publish a book on Amazon. So distribution has kind of fell by the wayside as a major sticking point. And now there's 3 main differences. There's the royalty rates, there's the time that it takes, and then there's the cost to publish. And so for royalty rates, you're looking at, if you're traditionally publishing, 8 to 12%. So we're talking $1, maybe $2 per book. If you're self-published, on the other hand, it's anywhere from 20% to 70% on the digital Kindle version. So that's a big difference. Maybe that's $5 to $8 a book, depending on pricing and stuff like that. So that's the royalty rate difference, pretty big difference. Time it takes, if you're traditionally publishing, minimum of 2 years. And then there's kind of, if you're self-publishing, maybe it'll take you a year, maybe it'll take you a decade. Depending on how disciplined you are. I think the stats about 60 or 70% of our students write and publish in less than a year. So saving a bunch of time in that process. And then there's the cost. So obviously, if you're going traditional publishing, they're going to cover the cost of publishing for you. Then there's kind of this middle ground, which is hybrid publishing. Some people call it vanity publishing. This is where you pay someone most often to publish your book. It might be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $30,000, and you're paying. And sometimes they also take a royalty cut, kind of depends. And then there's self-publishing, obviously, which that means you're going to have to pay the cost yourself. And so big 3 costs, sorry, this is a long answer, but big 3 costs are cover design, editing, formatting. Those are kind of your main 3 costs. Can cost anywhere from a few $100 to a few $1,000, or maybe more if you really don't know what you're doing, or if you just want to like spending money, then you can spend more than that. But that's kind of the ballpark. But the long and short of it is, for 99.9% of authors, it makes more sense to self-publish. Now, disclaimer, like, I run self-publishing school and I own selfpublishing.com. So obviously I'm biased, but I really think the only time it makes sense to traditionally publish is if you're a big name with a big audience and you can get a big advance. That's the only time. So if you're, Tony Robbins, Sean Cannell, Oprah, and you can get a big advance, then awesome. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe it still makes sense not to, but that's, in my opinion, the only time it makes sense to do that. It's kind of like, if you've ever heard the saying, it's like banks only lend money to people who don't need it. Publishers only give publishing deals to people who don't need it and who can sell the books without them. So that's kind of
how about ownership? Because one of the other reasons why I love self-publishing school, or I love self-publishing school as well, but self-publishing is you got the rights to your book. And like, I know that's maybe if you traditionally publish, like they kind of own rights and maybe distribution for a certain number of years, or you might even have to buy it back, or it's not released.
Often in perpetuity, and depending on how well you negotiate the contract, they'll own the content in perpetuity, at least in book form. Now, sometimes you can also, this is a small tip if you're going the traditional publishing route, negotiate out. There's a few things you should negotiate. You should negotiate out your audiobook rights. That's really important, because now that's a separate income stream for you. And a lot of publishers don't think about that. You can negotiate out foreign rights. You can also negotiate your author, the price of how many author copies they send you, and the price that you can purchase author copies at, which if you want to sell books elsewhere, or buy books, or use them as part of speaking events or whatever, you definitely want to negotiate that. And then there's a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, typically, to answer your original question, the publisher owns the rights to the book in perpetuity.
Yeah. So from my point of view, in pre-YouTube Secrets, which is self-published, we thought a ton about this and already had influence that we could have pursued the other route. And by the way, if you want to learn more about this, Chandler and I have a training that we're doing together. It's live, or if you want to catch the replay, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, at startyourbook.live. If you really want to go deeper in how you can get your book written in just 90 days, from literally blank page to getting it live on Amazon. And if you're thinking about writing a book, on the idea of self-publishing, to me, the huge thing was kind of that rights thing. Cause I also thought, man, if I could get some practice, get a book or two under my belt, even if I had more celebrity later, those other books would have lift, and I would have as opposed to the reverse, being that like, oh shoot, what if it blows up? What if it goes really big? Because you could always inject new life into it. Like almost like I could go self-published first, maybe traditional published later, and I could activate my back catalog with a greater level of profitability, as opposed to getting, one or two, or have the rights to even sell it later. And now I'm worth more. It's sort of like that idea. It's kind of like the record industry, where all of a sudden you blow up and now like you're in a bad contract.
Yes. Oh, 100%. And a lot of people do that. Some people don't, right? Like a lot of people, they'll self-publish the book and it'll sell so well that it'll get picked up by a traditional publisher and they'll get a better deal, which is amazing. And that works really well for them. But then and then some people choose not to. Like I just did a webinar earlier today with Hal Elrod. He's sold like 2.5 million copies or something of his self-published book, The Miracle Morning. And publishers are just throwing money at him, trying to buy the rights to that book. And he's like, no, show me the math. Okay, now I'm going to make way more money self-publishing a book or keeping this book self-published. He parlayed that into his book, The Miracle Equation, and got a good deal for that. And so that's traditionally published. And then so that you get a big advance, and he did well with that. And then you still have the cash cow of your first book. And then also, even something as simple as a really effective thing that helps sell more books is running Amazon ads. I always say that, Google is the search engine of browsers. Amazon is the search engine of buyers. Everyone's focused on SEO on the Google side of things, but Amazon, people are there for one reason and one reason only. That's to buy stuff with their credit card on file. So I would rather rank. I'd like to rank on both, obviously, and we're actively working towards that. And we do rank on both, but I would rather rank on Amazon because there's lower competition. And if I want to run ads, I can't do that. If I have like all my friends that are traditionally published, I'm like, hey, go through and set up your Amazon ads. And like, I can't. The publisher owns that, and I'm offering to pay them money, and they won't even set up Amazon ads, right? So even just small, simple things like that, where you have the control of your book, you can market it the way you want. You can get, like, I give away the audiobook for free. That means tons of leads. So I'm getting paid to get leads instead of paying for leads. Like all those little things like that, in a lot of cases, you just can't do if you're traditionally published.
That's super powerful. And yeah, we are in constant positive ROI running ads on YouTube Secrets ebook, which also means we're meeting new people, which kind of gets us teed up for best ways to monetize your book, what it can lead to. But just really quick, so who should self-publish a book? So I just think in our community, Nicole, kids occupational therapist, 100,000 YouTube subscribers.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, like, right? Like she could write like for new moms, like a motherhood, Fly Ride. He does custom LED lighting. He's also kind of into building businesses, and he's now scaling an influencer. He's on Clubhouse a lot. He's scaling. He's doing a lot of kind of social media stuff. So that could be interesting because maybe, I don't know if you'd buy a book about custom LED lights, but he's now built 10 different income streams around what was a traditional business. Ben from Keto Camp, he's got his book coming out, of course, ketosis, and that's a big one. So I just think about, I think that YouTube content creators might have not thought about doing this, but I think it's one of the smartest. It's not necessarily easy. That's where you come in. It's not easy. It's really easy to get off the rails. It's really easy to. Heather's actually working on her book right now, and it's had her in tears. Because it's emotional. Like it's it's the kind of thing.
Call it free therapy.
No doubt about it.
Especially if you're writing about a personal topic, it's free therapy. Like you're going to have to work through some stuff.
Yeah. And so, but who should self-publish a book? I mean,
Yeah.
you've helped so many people. What are some of the stories that are just remarkable about some books that have gotten off the ground that have helped people scale whatever they're doing in marketing or social or some other weird kind of business?
I'd say, there's kind of two camps. There's the legacy camp and then there's the business camp. Some people are saying, hey, I just want to do this. And if no one but my kids and my grandkids read this, I'm good. And then other people say, hey, I want to very strategically use this book to grow a business. And so we've got so many examples on both sides of that spectrum. One of my favorites is we had someone join self-publishing school years ago to write a book about physical therapy and back pain. Really awesome, doing an amazing thing. He's a physical therapist, but then his daughter saw it and said, hey, Dad, that's really cool. I want to write a book. And he said, all right, well, why don't you write, 500 words and come back to me? And thinking like, okay, I'm going to brush her off. And she's just saying this. She's not going to actually do it. And then she comes back like a couple hours later and she's got words written. And so then they worked kind of every Saturday at Panera Bread for weeks. And then she published a book. It made $3,000 or $4,000 in the first few months. She donated a bunch of money to autism awareness. Like now she's been on all these local TV shows. She's doing speaking gigs. She made like $1,200 or something from her first speaking gig, like at 8 years old. And now it's just like, I think about her life trajectory as a young woman and just the confidence, like the opportunity. She has a monthly allowance, which is really just her book royalty money that shows up every month, right? Like just life trajectory totally changed. And that's one of my favorite stories. And so a good example for the parents as well of like, hey, if you decide to do this, your kids are watching and they're paying attention. And when you go after your goals, they see that and they might want to do it too.
I love that. And I mean, I was kind of taught in this, even coming up, Chalene Johnson, who I know, and have done stuff with, it helps you as a speaker, you're maybe more in demand as a speaker because like, oh, you're a published author. Plus it could be the thing that happens from on stage. My friend Rory Vaden was on the podcast. Books have been a huge, thing for him. Obviously so many different people, whether you're you talked about the business camp. Man, if you've got a proprietary process, if you are a coach, a consultant, and it also can help you carve out a whole new side of business. And I think one of the big things that's interesting is I think sometimes we just have this myth of, well, I create all this content on social media. I've reached the maximum market. Of course I want to grow on Google or social more. Like, does anybody even read books? It's like, are you kidding? It's a whole nother actual side. And then like audiobooks, a whole nother conversation. Like some of the Gen Z people from our team, they're literally like, I don't read books, but I listen to audiobooks all the time. Like I'm just addicted to Audible. Yes. So once you've actually written the book, now you're going to get it in audio form. And that's a whole nother arm. Like what's the opportunity there? And that kind of ties more into this YouTube thing because we're here on a podcast. It's also a video podcast.
Yes.
But the audio is the person people are watching on their phone, listening on their phone. They're listening to iTunes to move over to Audible or whatever. And start consuming that audio while they're driving, while they're on, doing chores, while you're on a walk. It scales, like our friend Pat Flynn says, it scales intimacy because someone watched, you've seen the audience retention on a YouTube video. It's 2 minutes, 4 minutes, even of a 25-minute video. Someone commits to you in an audiobook. Now they've spent, even if they don't finish it, an hour with you, 2 hours with you, 3 hours with you. You read it yourself. They're hearing your voice. They're learning more about you. And it's such another level of depth, which speaks to that 1,000 true fans. It speaks to that like deeper than just vanity surface level social media metrics, but really going deeper. What are some of the things that people do with audiobooks with you guys?
Yeah, so I think you spoke to a really crucial distinction, Sean, which is I call this concept leveraged impact. So it's doing work once. And so you do the work once to create the book, and then that book impacts thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even millions of people, right? And so I think it's, social especially, there's a huge difference. If I'm creating content on social that disappears from the news feed and the longevity of that content is not very good. I'm running on a hamster wheel of content creation. This is what I love about you, what you guys are teaching on YouTube and why, I bought your course and sent my team through it and we're creating YouTube content and all that because at least YouTube content similar to a book, it has longevity, right? You create the content once, and then that thing, it continues to rank, it continues to bring in traffic, like there's longevity. So leveraged impact, you're creating it once, and then then you add in the audiobook component. And if you have a podcast, it's a no-brainer because the people who listen to your podcast would buy your audiobook. And so there's an instant crossover. There's all kinds of minutia things that are kind of cool, like the Audible bounty, which is when people go to try Audible and you're the first book that they download, whether you did that or it just happened, Audible pays you. They're always changing it, but it's like 50, 75, $100. So I have a few $100 a month that comes in just from Audible bounties, right? And so that's another stream of income. And there's people, listening to the audiobook, and then it gets into the stuff that I'm sure we'll talk about more in depth later. But where I look at it as a business owner, again, is it leads, sales, and referrals. And so leads are people that have heard of me because of my book, right? How many people wouldn't have heard of ClickFunnels if it wasn't for Russell Brunson's books, right? So new people in your ecosystem. Then there's sales, so getting a higher percentage of people who heard about you to do business with you as kind of like a transfer mechanism. So just like you do, use the book as part of your webinar, or use the book as part of the sales process, and you're going to see a conversion rate lift on all those things. And then lastly, as a referral mechanism, so give 2 copies to every customer, right? And say, hey, here's one for you, and here's one for a friend that needs help with XYZ. I do this all the time, and I think we've been at events together, and whenever I'm speaking, I bring hundreds of books and give them all away. Because then it's like there's just an army of people, and everyone around the conference is like, wait, hold up, what's that? And then some people don't even read the books, but they'll, it's like if I would have gave them a business card, they would have thrown it away probably within 24 hours. But now they're holding that book. They take it home. They don't throw it away. It's in their home. It's in their office. And every time they see it, they think of me in self-publishing school. And then maybe they don't even want to publish a book, but someone comes by their house or their office and says, hey, what's that? And they say, oh, you want it? You can have this copy, right? And so you're turning customers or prospects into a referral engine, as John Jantz would call it, for your book. And so that's how I look at it, kind of the 3 buckets as an entrepreneur of how do I plug the book into what I'm already doing to bring back leads, sales, referrals.
Man, super, super powerful. And if you're like fired up by everything that Chandler's saying, and you want to learn more about this, especially like we haven't really got into how do you start to self-publish your book? How do you start writing it? You might have a lot of mindsets of self-doubt, like, oh, do I have anything to say? Or I'm not a good writer. I wasn't good in English. Like these things can kind of hold us back. And that's where Chandler's process can really help you. If you want to watch a free training, of course, at the end of it, you'll learn more about all the ways that self-publishing in school can help you. But the free training alone is so valuable that we're doing together. It's at startyourbook.live. And you can watch that free webinar. And that's what are they going to learn on that training?
Yeah, so you'll learn 3 things. So you're going to learn how to write your book in as little as a weekend, which I know probably sounds crazy, but I'll teach you the 3-step process to either write your book or speak your book if you choose to do it that way, kind of a choose your own adventure. We'll go more in depth on self-publishing versus traditional publishing. And then we're going to talk about how to use or how to launch your book successfully. So I've got something really cool that I'll talk about on the launch front that'll help you get more reviews and have a more successful launch with your book. So those are the core things. And practicing what I'm preaching here. When you register for the training, if you show up live and stay to the end, you'll get a copy of my book published. So we'll send you a digital copy of the book when you register. It's at startyourbook.live.
Yeah. So definitely check out that training. As we land the plane, I do want to just kind of rapid fire on some ways to monetize. I mean, if people already go, if I get the leads, I can monetize. Maybe you could share some stories. And again, I want people to hear, this is coming out of my own experience. I wanted to have Chandler on because I believe so much in the power of a book. There's a level of just pride, accomplishment, confidence that is intangible, and you don't know until you're on the other side of that book.
Yeah.
Just the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. And from, following a proven process, I definitely say don't go it alone because it's super scary. And I think most people, they start, but they never actually get their book published. I love your results of your students, but we've seen physical books have made sales, ebooks. We actually are now in digital international sales from ebooks, but we've also had foreign rights. And because we self-published, I think, we feel blessed. I think it was Korean, Chinese, Russian. We just got that cover, and Vietnamese so far. I'm not sure why not Spanish. I'm like, come on, man. I mean, Spanish is a big market, but just people that are interested in YouTube secrets. So a lot of different things can happen. The audiobook, the royalties. What's like a story or an example of just somebody who they wrote their book and man, it led to monetization that they kind of surprised them?
Yeah, I would say there's one or two examples that just jump to the top of my head. First of which I think will be super applicable for your audience. A guy named David McKay. So you know this, Sean. My brother plays in the Grammy-nominated rock and roll band called Need to Breathe. They were playing at Red Rocks one year, and I met this guy. He was a photographer, and he was taking pictures. And he followed up after and was going to work with you guys on a book. And I think he still has the record. He wrote and published 2 books within 89 days of starting to work with us. Crazy. But what that did is he emailed me the other day. He said, hey, it's been 1 year since I joined self-publishing school, over $10,000 in royalties. Nice. But more importantly, $45,000 in business from his book. So basically, he does photography tours where they take people out in nature, like Africa and like all this stuff. And so people read the book about how to do photography, and then they see that he does tours, and then they book photography tours with him. In year one, $45,000 worth of tours that he could track was directly from the book. He says those books bring in about 30 to 40 leads per week. Again, instead of paying for leads, he's getting paid to get leads. And then he just emailed me over Christmas, I think it was, and he was like, yeah, another 20-something thousand dollars worth of tours. And this was another person that came from my books, and just a gift that keeps on giving. And then another example, this guy, Scott Groves, he had a crazy amount of words, like 500,000 words or something. And it was like, man, I've been working on this for 4 years. I need to pay you to actually get it done. And he scrapped all of it and wrote and published it in I think it was 90 days. And he's a mortgage broker. And it was like within, 4 months, 5 months or something, like a few $1,000s in royalties. I think it was $8,000 in royalties. Got a $59,000 a year pay bump at his job. Hired a new employee that found him because of his book. And it was like 2 deals that was worth like $60,000 in commissions or something like that. And that was, I mean, it crystallized it, finished his book. I think he like locked himself in a hotel room for a weekend or something, got the book done, and then used it to start growing his business.
Man, I love hearing that too. And when I think mortgage broker, and you know what it makes me think is it makes me think personal branding. It makes me think real estate agent, mortgage broker, doula, fitness coach. Man,
yes.
If you don't have a book, you're just another like everyone else. But you take him, he writes the book. Now all of a sudden you come in with another, it's forced you to level up. Yes. All of a sudden the person on the other side of that interview or the job you're in gets that promotion. But even in terms of attracting top talent or building a team, now it's like, oh, because again, you're published author. You got that authority piece, or you don't know who's reading your book and they're getting to know you in that intimate way and you don't even know it yet. And then all of a sudden they're up to speed, or you've articulated your mission, your vision, your values in your book.
Yeah.
And now they want to be a part of what you're doing. And so it could lead to partnerships, collaborations. You have a stronger personal brand, more revenue, more leads. Your business is growing. The power of a book, Chandler. That's why I had to have you on the podcast, because there's just so many benefits. It's not easy. It's a lot easier if they go through a proven process and people actually always, there's 2 ways, right, to get wisdom. One way is the slowest way, your own mistakes, and maybe never actually figuring it out and it taking forever. Or the better way is other people's mistakes. Like somebody's already figured out, like, don't go that way. The time to have the map is before you enter the woods. And so that you can follow a proven plan. But nevertheless, my hope in everybody listening to this is that you would seriously consider, whether today is the right time or whether it's sometime later, that you would make it one of your ambitions and your goals to say, man, if I want to take my business to the next level, my personal brand, I want to stand out in the sea of sameness of social media influencers, man, I want to write a book. If only to also get that in that audiobook format, because man, we've generated like over $40,000 just on the audiobook side, not from our products and programs, literally just from Audible bounties and Audible. And we've done things at scale, but like you said, every single video on video influencers pretty much is like, this video is brought to you by Tube Secrets book, tubesecretsaudio.com. Get the #1 best-selling YouTube strategy book for free because if you don't have audio, and it's a 15-second ad spot, rinse and repeat. And we've done it for a couple years, and people continue to grab the audiobook for free, or they already have an Audible book account. So friends, I hope you will check it out or think about writing a book. And if you want some help, Chandler's got you, and you can check out the training that we did together at startyourbook.live. Chandler, if people want to connect with you, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm old school, so I'm literally only on social, only on Facebook. And then we're, self-publishing school website or selfpublishing.com. Otherwise I'm on Facebook.
I love it. Well, Chandler, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing everybody over on the training at startyourbook.live. So I hope you got value out of that conversation with Chandler Bolt, but there's still so much to come on the podcast. So stick around. And the first thing is, if you have been getting value out of the Think Marketing podcast and you haven't left a review, it would mean the world to me and the team if you would just drop a review on Apple Podcasts. In fact, you can go to thinkmarketingshow.com, and we're actually doing a giveaway of an all-access pass to our conference, Grow with Video Live. And all you got to do is it breaks down all the steps. You can leave a review. You text us a picture of the review, and then you're entered to win a free virtual pass to the #1 YouTube marketing conference for entrepreneurs and smart business owners, Grow with Video Live. And so check all that out, thinkmarketingshow.com. And if you watch or listen to the Think Marketing podcast on YouTube, of course, smash the like button and leave a comment. I would love to know your biggest takeaway from today's episode. Now, maybe Chandler really got you fired up about writing a book. And I want to encourage you, don't miss the training we are doing together at startyourbook.live. If you want to be a part of a free workshop on how to go from blank page to published author in 90 days, the busy person's guide to getting it done in just 30 minutes a day, then you're going to love that training. You're going to learn the 3-step system that Chandler uses to write, publish, and launch, listen, a best-selling book in as little as 90 days. And then also how to use your book to leave a legacy. You're going to find your book idea in under an hour. You're going to find how he wrote his first book, over 200 pages in just 1 week, how to leverage your book to grow your authority, income, and business, how he made $4,000 a month in book royalties. And with his first book, he used it to grow a 7-figure company in just 2 years. A lot of stuff covered on the training. If you want to be a part of it, I'm going to be there with Chandler. I hope you're there. Startyourbook.live to register. Now, of course, we always want to be transparent with you at the Think Marketing Podcast. At the end of the training, Chandler's going to let you know that if you want to work with him and he helps you through self-publishing school, write your book, you have some kind of a special offer. But either way, whether you want to go it alone and learn the information and then, sit down at Microsoft Word and figure it out and type your book out and use the tips, don't miss the training. And whether you're like, this seems like it'll be an awesome thing for me, then don't miss the training and you can see what the next steps are as well. But if you have any interest at all and you see the power of publishing or self-publishing your own book and what that could do for you as an authority, as a content creator, as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, as someone who just wants to leave a legacy or a memoir for your family, then don't miss the training. Again, startyourbook.live. And you can be there for the training. If you're watching this sometime in the future, I think the replay will be left up for at least a little while. And so startyourbook.live is the website. It is time. This is what happens when Heather is not doing the intros and outros of the podcast. You've got Sean's sound effects. But it's time for the comment of the day. And the T5 guy says this podcast is legit. I've been following Think Media YouTube channel for about a year, and I decided to jump into the YouTube game. I found this podcast and it is so rich. Sean really gives great insight on marketing, growing your channel, and providing better content. My biggest takeaway in the end is that Sean stresses that it's about being a better human being. Start and end there and you will find success. The T5 guy, thank you so much for leaving the comment. And I hope you did it at the thinkmarketingshow.com. Take a screenshot of it. You can still do it and submit that so we get you entered to win a free virtual pass to Grow with Video Live 2021. Of course, we'll tell you more about Grow with Video Live in the future. It's not until the end of August in 2021. So there's definitely time, but we will be bringing you more information from that. But in the meantime, leave a review and you'll be entered to win one of 3, I believe, virtual passes for that. Now, I want you to get ready because next week we're kind of doing part 2 of this podcast, but it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to keep talking about books and why you may want to write a book, but specifically, I am going to be sharing the untold story of YouTube Secrets. Now, the book, YouTube Secrets, that I co-wrote with my friend Benji Travis, I believe is at around 70,000 copies now sold between ebooks, physical books, audiobooks downloaded. And we've learned so many lessons. We did a lot of things right because we got help. You know, that's why you connect with people like Chandler. You get help so you can shorten your learning curve and you can learn someone who's gone the path before. We also made a lot of mistakes. So I'm going to be talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the YouTube Secrets journey. And I'm going to be talking about how to 10x your brand and your business with the book. I'm going to be sharing all the numbers, the details, the units sold, the things we learned, the campaigns we did, and you'll see why this is so powerful to do as a content creator. If you have a cooking channel, maybe it's a cookbook. Definitely, if you're Heather Torres and it's about homeschool, it could be something in education or homeschool. Maybe it's personal development or self-development. If you're Nicole in the Think Media community, it could be around parent coaching, how to raise parents, how to be a parent, how to keep your sanity as a mom. It could be around relationships, money, motivation, memoir, fiction, whatever. Maybe not every YouTube channel, but a majority of YouTube channels. Maybe not every business owner, but pretty much every business owner, every entrepreneur should really consider how writing a book will boost your personal brand, not only on the training with Chandler, not only in this episode, and you learned a lot, but I'm just excited to kind of go deep and tell the story of the lessons I learned next week. So stick around. Make sure you're subscribed. Whether you consume the Think Marketing podcast on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you are on Apple Podcasts, make sure you get subscribed, or any of the audio platforms, because we will be back every single Tuesday with a brand new episode to help you reach your goals with YouTube and building a business around your YouTube channel with the Think Marketing podcast. I appreciate you. Grateful for you. It's time to take action. Hashtag action takers. Let's get to work and make our next best video. Post those videos, punch fear in the face, punch perfectionism in the face, and just press record, and we will talk soon.